This is Mindfulness with Richard Clarke. Listen, reflect, and deeply meditate. Sometimes you watch the mind closely and notice it settling, almost as if something inside you knows the way back home. You sit there, waiting for clarity to arrive, waiting for the noise to ease, waiting for something real to show itself. You stay with the breath, you stay with the body, and slowly the mind begins to reveal its own pattern. Today we're going to look at a question many people feel but rarely ask out loud. Before we get there, remember to like, subscribe, tap the bell, and leave a comment so this insight can reach more people. Welcome. This is Richard. Today's session will be on Vipassana and mindfulness, how they work together to clear the mind. If you look at Vipassana and mindfulness side by side, you might think they describe the same thing. They sit close together, but they move in different ways inside your practice. Mindfulness is the steadiness that keeps you present. Vipassana is the clear seeing that shows how experience behaves. You need both, but they do different jobs. When you practice mindfulness, you stay with what is happening right now. Breath moving, chest rising, thought appearing, sound passing. You meet each moment with awareness and without fighting it. Mindfulness steadies your attention so you can stay connected to what is happening instead of getting dragged around by your reactions. This steadiness builds emotional balance, presence, and a kinder relationship with your own mind. Vipassana steps in once the mind is steady. It asks you to look closely at the nature of each experience. You begin to notice how sensations flicker, how feelings shift, how thoughts rise and fall without your help. You see that everything is changing. You see that grabbing any of it leads to strain. You see that no solid person is pushing these events from behind the curtain. This is not philosophy. It is what you actually witness when you pay attention with care. This is where the difference shows itself. Mindfulness gives you the calm ground. Vipassana shows that the ground never stays still. Mindfulness teaches you presence. Vipassana shows you the truth inside that presence. You learn that life is movement. You observe each moment before it leaves, and it leaves before you can hold it. You learn that the one who tries to hold it cannot be found. When you see this directly, strain begins to let go on its own. To bring this into your daily life, you might begin with simple mindfulness during ordinary tasks. When washing your hands, feel the water. When eating, notice the taste and feel. When walking, feel the pressure of each step. This makes your attention steady. Then you shift into Vipassana by watching change in real time. Notice the breath not as a single event, but as a series of sensations. Notice a thought appear without asking permission. Notice a feeling rise, peak, and fade. The more you look, the clearer it becomes. Vipassana without mindfulness becomes scattered. Mindfulness without Vipassana becomes flat. When you bring the two together, you gain a practice that sharpens your insight and softens your heart. You learn to meet each moment as it is and see through it without fear. In that combination, real clarity begins to grow and the path becomes simple. When you look honestly at these practices, you start to see how they support each other. Mindfulness steadies you. Vipassana shows you what's actually happening inside that steadiness. You gain both calm and clarity, and that combination changes how you meet your days. May your practice stay grounded, simple, and alive in each moment. And now a guided meditation. Settle into your seat. Let your breath move in a natural rhythm. Feel the weight of your body resting. Notice the quiet shift from thinking to simple presence. Begin with ordinary mindfulness. Feel one breath, then another. Let each breath anchor you. Nothing to fix, nothing to force. Now let your attention open. Notice the next sensation that moves into awareness. It might be warmth, tingling, a sound, a thought. Watch it rise. Watch it move. Watch it fade. Do not chase anything. Ask yourself gently, who is watching this change? Is there a center that stays the same? Or is there only awareness knowing each moment as it passes? Let thoughts appear on their own. Let them leave on their own. Let the body speak in its own timing. Stay curious about how everything shifts and changes. Let this question rest inside you. What stays when everything else moves? Rest in that quiet noticing. Take a slow breath and feel the quiet you touch settling into your whole body. Let the mind know it can rest now. Nothing to fix, nothing to chase, just this steady presence that was here all along. As you open your eyes, keep a small thread of this stillness within you. Let it guide how you move and how you speak today. May your practice stay steady. May your insight stay clear. So, Barley, how is your meditation? How's your meditation been?
Steady.
Yes.
I go to the same meditation session and I fast forward it to the part where you just get us ready to meditate.
Uh-huh.
Then I just sit there for maybe it's 20 minutes. I've never timed it. And then
Uh-huh.
you'd say, ready to wake up, and I wake up. Well, I'm not sleeping, but if I sleep, then I know I've started it too late in the evening. But
It's good that you're using that. The time that I give for the meditation is usually about 15 minutes.
okay. Yeah,
I-
it's working well every day.
And I'm real glad to see that for you it has become steady. That was not always the case.
No, I know, and it might change again, but
Of
for
course.
now
Right.
it's good.
How about you, Joyce?
Meditation has been good and helpful. I've been doing a fair amount of meditation at night, and it is very calming and centering, as well as helping you go to sleep. You're right about that, Barbara. You've been tired, and that just puts you right to sleep, which is not a bad thing sometimes, but good.
Well, it seems like part of your issue is still you in your life go through a lot of changes and travel and visiting and stuff like that. And that still makes it hard to have a regular routine.
Yes, it does. And of course, living here in Bucerius, where the town doubles in size in November, things get a little more hectic. But I have found that when it's night and quiet is the best time for me, because
Uh-huh.
there aren't distractions.
Uh-huh. And certainly you have that same quiet time at night wherever you are.
Exactly.
Okay, good. How are you doing, Carol?
Nothing to report really. I find I shutting down the computer now and then meditating a little bit before I come up to bed, and then I try to continue it in bed. So that's sort of been my recent practice.
Uh-huh. And again, for you, part of the key is turning the computer off and giving yourself space to do it.
Yeah, of course. Well, and I was for a long while, as you know, listening to those that one guy, particularly Sunny Sharma, but stopped with him. So going back to my basics on my own.
Okay, okay. And again, I would notice that you all now are to the place where you have a pretty regular practice and it's something that is just a part of your life. And so that means each of you has actually established a meditation practice. So I think that's a big deal. So now we have a video, in keeping with the what we're talking about today. This video is what is insight meditation, Vipassana, from Doug's Dharma.
But in particular, Lady Sayadaw wanted to focus on the mindfulness refrain. Now, the refrain is a certain passage within the sutta on the foundations of mindfulness that repeats throughout the sutta. And basically, it's a refrain which I've discussed in my prior videos on the foundations of mindfulness, that we are to focus on the arising and passing of each of the states that we're supposed to contemplate within a mindfulness context. We're supposed to be aware of the fact that they are impermanent. We're supposed to make ourselves aware of this in a moment-by-moment way, in a direct way, not simply to be aware of their impermanence intellectually, but to become aware of it at a visceral level. And this insight into change, this insight into the impermanence of these states, also allows us to have insight into their unsatisfactory nature, because anything that is impermanent is not itself completely satisfactory, because even insofar as it is satisfactory, it decays and goes away. So it's not something we can rely upon. So to that extent, it's not reliable. Also, we're to become aware in the same way that these states are non-self, that they're not ourselves, they're not who we are, because they will arise and pass. Whoever we are, whoever we would like to be, is something that we think of as being permanent, as something that sort of persists. But these states we can see directly arise and pass, so they cannot be who we are. And these three aspects, the aspects into insight into the three aspects of reality, that reality is changeable, that reality is in some sense unsatisfactory, and that reality is non-self, these three aspects, this is what we're to have insight into. So when we call that meditation insight meditation, or Vipassana, which is the Pali word for insight, or translated as insight, what we're saying is that this is a meditation that involves insight into these three aspects of reality. And Lady Sayadaw thought of this kind of meditation, this form of meditation, as most efficient, because within the early texts, awakening is attained upon the sort of understanding that is not a conceptual understanding, but a visceral understanding of these three aspects of reality. It's insight into the non-self nature of reality, insight into dukkha, which is the second of these, the fact that reality is not satisfactory, insight into change, that then produces awakening, because as we're aware of reality in this sense, we tend to disidentify with it, we tend to relax around it, we tend not to cling to it. It's also worth saying that although Lady Sayadaw himself was innovating in the sense that he was leaving jhana largely to one side and focusing on lay practice, that is to say, he was teaching to lay people, he was teaching in the vernacular language, which was unusual in that day. It's not as though this was not done in the early suttas. He was intimately aware of the suttas in the Pali Canon, which was his background. And in fact, we do find in the Pali Canon remarks that awakening is possible, or seems to be possible, without the achievement of at least all of the jhanas. It's not entirely clear, but it's not clear that it's clear that one can achieve awakening without achieving complete mastery of the jhanas, because there are people who do it in the early texts. It's also clear in the early texts that the Buddha was not opposed to lay people attaining awakening, or at least trying to attain awakening. There was nothing, he was not opposed to that in any way. So, and certainly lay people did reach high levels of achievement. So It's when we say that Lady Sayadaw was introducing innovations, he was introducing them as innovations in his day and in the Buddhist religion of his day. But if we look at the Buddhist history, what he was trying to do, at least in his light, and I think correctly, was to sort of unearth earlier practices which could be more useful in a modern context. So in any event, and this, his attempt is to produce in us a mind of non-clinging by insight into these aspects of reality. And by doing that, he's trying to produce the third noble truth, or make us aware of the third noble truth, that extinction, that awakening is possible through the decay or extinction of clinging. Now, Afanasy Bushmanov's question that I referred to at the beginning of the video was how, not only what is insight or what is Vipassana meditation, but how does it differ from calming meditation? In the first hand, they're not entirely different. And I think it would be a mistake to think of insight as sort of versus calm, or insight as different, because we need some level of calm, some level of relaxation in order to pursue this kind of, or any kind of meditation, really. That's one of the reasons why focusing on the breath is so important in all kinds of Buddhist meditation, really, because by focusing on the breath, we at least begin to calm down the body. And when we begin to calm down the body, we're able to focus in more intently on whatever it is we're trying to do. So, for example, it certainly does help to begin with breathing meditation if we're going to achieve jhana, but that takes much longer. That's a much more deep, focused kind of enterprise, but it is also a kind of calming meditation. If we're going to do normal mindfulness meditation, where we're just focusing on the different aspects of the mind or the body, that also tends to begin with calming. Because if we're not calm, if the mind is bouncing around too much, we're not able to focus well enough on what the body or the mind is producing for us. All we can do is focus on the blooming, buzzing confusion, which is enough for us. If that's what the mind is producing, then at least we're aware of that. But it's still, we can achieve much more if we're able to calm. So to that extent, there isn't really a hard and fast distinction between calming meditation and Vipassana. They're related. You have to do both. You have to do calming if you're going to do Vipassana. But I think what distinguishes Vipassana meditation from simply calming meditation is that, of course, we can get to a calming meditation where we get to sort of a blissed out state, where we're relaxed and we're calm and we're not stressed, but we're just sort of hanging out there. We're not doing anything. And that isn't really what we're trying to do in traditional Buddhist meditation. What we want to do is then, once we get to that level, to use that calm to a greater end. And in particular in Vipassana, there is I would say, a key cognitive aspect here. Insight into these three aspects of experience is something that is at least partly cognitive. I mean, we have to be aware of the arising and passing. Those are cognitive, those are intellectual, in at least to a degree intellectual states, because we're seeing things, we're naming things in a sense as arising and passing. Even if we don't explicitly use those words in our mind, we're at least fitting them into a kind of a cognitive role. Now that, of course, is not to say that it's merely cognitive, because otherwise, we could do Vipassana meditation simply by picking up a book of Buddhist philosophy or Buddhist theory and reading about it, and that clearly would not be sufficient. So it's more than simply cognitive, but it's at least partly cognitive. And in that way, as we use this cognition to understand the world correctly from within an early Buddhist context, to the extent that we're able to then change our emotional attachment with the world. In other words, we're able to see it as non-self, as non-satisfactory, as changeable, and we're able to relax around it, which is an emotional kind of reaction. Then we're able to achieve, I would say, a more skillful state of relation to the world. So if you're interested in pursuing Vipassana or insight meditation, there are, of course, many, many resources around the web, or there are Insight or Vipassana groups within many cities around the world. If you see a Buddhist meditation group in your town or city or a local town that calls itself Vipassana or Insight, that's the kind of thing that, at least at some level, they're pursuing. But if you want to pursue this on your own without access to those kinds of groups, one thing to do is to do a kind of mindfulness meditation, but to, try to remember to be aware of the arising and passing of states, to try to be aware of the unsatisfactory nature of these states because of their arising and passing, because of their impermanence, to try to be aware of the selfless nature of states, that these states are not who you are, that they're not you, that they are to some degree an objective part of the furniture of the world, and so there's something that you can see yourself as distinct from, and so therefore there's something that you can relax around and let go.
And so now we're going to take a few minutes to meditate. And mindfulness is present moment awareness, paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally. Fully receive whatever is experienced, then let it go. All right. And we'll close with a chant. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om. Peace, peace, peace.
Thank you, Richard.
All right. Well, thank you for joining together again today. And we'll see you next week.
Namaste.
Namaste.